Okay, Dad, you came into the church in when? 1950, 1957. So
Yes.
you've been in the church now just few days ago, 56 years.
This past Saturday, yes.
56 years. And you were a 28-year-old Protestant when you came into the church.
That's correct.
All right. Tell us a little bit about just kind of your Protestant background. You actually studied to be a Protestant minister for a couple of years, right?
Yes.
But what did you think about that experience as far as what you were learning in the Protestant minister school?
I studied at the Nazarene College in Kankakee, Illinois. I happened to be at the same school that Archbishop Sheen went to, which was previously a Catholic school, St. Viator's, and it was at Olivet Nazarene College. I was there in 1948, 49, and 50. I didn't know anything about Catholicism. I wasn't exposed to it, except previously when I was in high school. One of my good friends that lived close to us, and we used to walk back and forth to school together. And he was a Catholic. His whole family were Catholic. They were very devout Catholics. And so walking home from school one day, he stopped by St. Patrick's Church, which we would pass each day. But he went
in your hometown.
In my hometown, in southern Ohio, and he stopped in, and I went in after him. I just stood in the back of the church, and it's the first time I'd ever been in a Catholic church, and I was awed by the beauty of it, all the statues, the lamps, everything. And I just thought interiorly how beautiful it was. But Ken and I did not discuss it. He wasn't the type that would push his Catholic faith. He lived it, but he didn't push it. And there was another thing that having been in public schools, and then when I went to high school, and I never met any Catholics before that, and there was a big difference. I noticed that all the students who were Catholics in high school with me that I had not known previously, and I was very impressed by how polished, how they carried themselves, and it was so different from the rest of us that they had something I didn't know what it was. At that time, I didn't think about it, but I knew. Interiorly, I knew. And so I had many different Catholic friends after that. And I was always impressed by how they carried themselves. And,
so that would have been right around World War II and just after it, right?
Yes, it was between 1943 and 1947 when I graduated from high school.
Right, so the last couple of years of World War II and then the first couple of post-war years.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Yes, and I was just impressed by their behavior, how they carried themselves, and they weren't of the world. It seemed. It seemed like they had a whole different foundation to the way that they carried themselves from the rest of us students, that we did not have this. And so anyway, to carry on after that, then when I left for college, I dated a Catholic girl. While I was in college, there was a Catholic church right next door to where our administration building was. It seemed like it.
Is that while you were studying to be a Protestant minister?
Yes, and that's kind of a misnomer, really, saying that I studied to be a Protestant minister. I was there, I attended classes, but I just didn't really grasp or care to grasp. I thought mostly of sports and girls and parties and this type of thing. And I didn't do well academically. And I had to take that up at a further time. Anyway, when I finished, one of the professor's his sons said to me one day, said, Russ, why don't we join the Navy? So I thought that was good because I was getting ready to leave anyway. I wasn't doing well, and it was costing money. And so I took him up.
This was
on,
when, like, 1949, 1950?
It was 1950.
1950.
1950.
Okay.
That's when I left school, I think February of 1950. And then we went to join in Ohio to enlist in the Navy. And I was rejected because I had a perforated eardrum, which I'd had all my life.
Okay.
And so.
Which is why you're a little hard of hearing now.
Yes, but during those years I could hear all right, you know. Yeah, I'm very definitely hard of hearing now. So we joined the Air Force. Memory recalls maybe about 30 people took the test exam for either the Army or the Air Force. And Al, my friend, and I were the only two that passed for the Air Force.
Oh, was it the Air Force then, or was it the Army Air Corps?
No,
still?
It was the U.S. Air Force.
It was the Air Force.
Yeah, because that was in 1947 when that became
Switch.
the United States Air Force.
Okay.
And I eventually went to England in 1952. In April of 1952, I went to England, and that's where my further exposure to Catholicism was, where I met your future mother there. And so incidentally, we met on the telephone. We didn't have iPads or iPhones or anything else. I happened to walk into the orderly room one day, and a friend of mine was I forget what you called it. He was in charge to look after the squadron audit. And he was on the telephone to his girlfriend. And he said to me, his girlfriend asked him, do you have a friend? Because I've got my friend here with me. And then we could double date if you got a friend. So he said, yes, in fact, he's here with me. So he put me on the phone. And my future wife came on the phone. That's how and then we gradually made other arrangements for phone calls. At a certain time when I'd go to the orderly room, and then I'd call, she'd call, and so then eventually I met her. She took the bus to the town, the big town where the base was located. And the first time I saw her, I met her at a bus stop as she was getting off the bus. She had an Irish green coat on. I'll never forget that. And I thought, wow, you know. So anyway, we went to a little cafe and sat and talked. And I showed her some pictures of my family and related my background and this type of thing. And so. And one thing led to another. We made plans for further dates, and in England it was always the pub. That was a meeting place for everybody. But we just wanted to be together, and that was our rendezvous where we would always meet. And so as time passed, then we knew we were both getting serious, and she wanted me to go home. She had told her family before this, where her father worked, the men always talked against the Yanks because the Yanks had a bad reputation during the Second World War. The ugly American, I think, was a better expression. And
you were a Yank.
I was a Yank. And this is rather comical when I finally, and Anne had two older sisters, and her mother, and they were directly from Ireland. So on a Sunday afternoon, she took me home to meet her mother and her sisters, and they had planned to have the father. He always took an afternoon nap on Sunday afternoon, and. So when I met them, and I came in and I sat at the kitchen table, and I was having a sandwich or something. I forget now exactly what it was. And they never expected him to come downstairs. And he came down, and I'm sitting there at his table in my uniform. And so Mary Ann, and your mother's mother, said, this is Ann's friend. It's Russ. His name is Russ. And he just said hello, and then he just walked straight past and out into the kitchen.
Granddad?
Yeah, and then he had to face his friends at work that his daughter was dating a Yank, and but eventually he and I became just absolutely inseparable friends. We were just buddies with each other.
Now, Granddad was very committed Catholic, right?
Oh, absolutely. The whole family was.
Yeah.
They were very. Oh, and that's another point in that journey, was that when I would go to Ann's hometown in northern England, on the Sundays, usually on Sundays, and she would take me to benediction at the church. The church where we would one day be married.
St. Oswald's.
St. Oswald's.
With the hand of Blessed Edmund Arrowsmith.
Blessed Edmund Arrowsmith, yes. And even though I didn't understand it, I thought how beautiful it was. And the majesty of the church, it just struck me. The beauty, the glory. You could, and it was so much a part of everybody's life. And
this is in northern England.
Yes, in Lancashire, England.
Lancashire County,
yes.
That had really become kind of an enclave for Irish Catholic immigrants.
It very definitely is, yes.
And also was kind of the stronghold against Elizabeth and the Church of England and all of that. It really is kind of like the Catholic ghetto or enclave or whatever you want to call it. That's really where the most Catholics in England were. So you're going into
John Fisher and Edmund
John
Arrowsmith,
Fisher, exactly.
Yes.
They're many of martyrs for the faith.
Oh, very much so.
Were from that.
They used to hide the priests there.
That's right.
Yeah.
So that's where your exposure to your really in-depth exposure to Catholicism is there.
Exactly.
Okay.
And eventually, I proposed to your mother, and there was one difficulty, because having been raised Protestant, and the church required that as a Protestant, if you married a Catholic, you had to sign paperwork that you would bring your children up Catholic.
That's me.
Yeah, but at the time, I certainly didn't know that, and so it bothered me. It bothered me, and I thought, I better go and talk to the chaplain. This was a huge base. It was about 30 miles around the perimeter of the base. So they had various
This is the Air Force, U.S. Air Base in England.
U.S. Air Base. It was an RAF station.
Right.
A Burtonwood RAF station in Warrington, England. And I went to see one of the chaplains who, it turned out to be, he was Lutheran. I found that out later. And I told him that I was in love with a Catholic girl and I was planning to get married. And his response was, whatever you do, don't marry a Catholic. They're out to take over the world. Those were his exact words to me. And I don't know if he said other things, he probably did, but anyway. Then I told Ann.
Well, he was right.
But not in the same way that he thought. So I told Ann what had transpired, and she said, well, why don't we go and talk to my priest? What a world of difference. What a world of difference. What a saintly man he was. And during the course of our conversation, he said they had to get a dispensation. Her older sisters were school teachers, and they managed all that in your mother's behalf. Your future mother said to me, one thing I would ask you, Russ, whatever you do, make this promise to me that whatever you do, you'll never do anything to interfere with your wife's religion. I didn't have any problem with that. And so I thought, yes, that's fine, I can do that. But I had other thoughts in my head. As it bothered me later, and I thought, well, how can I bring my children up into this pagan religion? which was my Protestant view of Catholicism to the point that I knew. This is how I rationalized it. I thought, well, we'll be going back to, we got married. We got married on the 25th of July, 1953. And we left to come back to the States around Christmas time of 53. So my intention was to get her back into when we got back to the state, to take her to an old-fashioned revival meeting and convert her.
I get to laugh at that because having known Mom, obviously, that's laughable.
Was and you know.
Imagine Mom becoming a Protestant. That would be hysterical.
We never argued about religion, but whenever anything would come up, and I would say, "Well, honey, what about this and what about that?" And she would explain things, and I remember in 1955, she did not push her religion. But I would go to Mass with her. Mm-hmm. She went one time with me to the Nazarene Church on a Sunday evening. That was to please my mother.
Yeah.
She never went back, never had a desire to go back. And, but what really attracted me was when we were on a trip in the West Coast. We were coming down, it was either in Southern Oregon or Northern California. And we stopped in a Catholic church. And this was in 1955. Mm-hmm. And I picked up a little booklet, a little leaflet, and it said the third secret of Fatima to be revealed in 1960. Mm-hmm. That whetted my appetite. And I asked Ann about it, and so she told me the story of Fatima. And I eagerly awaited for 1960 after I'd become Catholic. But the more that I learned, all the questions, they just were so sensible. They're so reasonable. Mm-hmm. And you can't study the Catholic faith with an open mind and not accept it. Truth is truth, and it's indivisible. Mm-hmm. And this is where I found truth. And so that was my journey into the church. Needless to say, my family, I was a family of 7 boys, and they did not... they
didn't take too kindly to this.
Not too kindly to me having married and till this day, it was never changed. Mm-hmm. I'm the only one in the family that became Catholic. And I used to ask myself, I wonder why God, out of all of our family, that I was the only one that happened to have this great honor and privilege to be so blessed and to be able to come into the Holy Catholic Church. And I felt, and the most difficult thing when I was studying the faith was the idea of Mary, of praying to Mary, the Blessed Virgin Mary. And but the more I read, let me sidetrack again. Before we went back to England, I told Ann that I wanted to take instructions with my hometown priest. So that's where the official journey started. And that was in that same church where my friend Ken, the first time I was ever in a Catholic church. And that was the same place where the priest... It
would have been about 15 years earlier when you were there with him, maybe 20 years earlier.
That was in the 40s, about 1945, somewhere around there, when Ken and I went into the church. Mm-hmm. When I went back to that church was about 1955, yeah.
Okay, so 10 years earlier.
Yeah, about 10 years earlier.
So the same church you were in 10 years earlier as a boy with your boyhood Catholic friend.
Exactly.
Now you have all that stuff happen in your life. You meet Mom, or the future Mrs. Voris. Mm-hmm. You come back to Ohio, married to her, and you go back to that same church and that same priest. And
exactly. And that's where the journey began. And he started, in those days, they used to instruct you individually. I would go to I would go to.
There were no RCIA classes?
Thank God, no. No.
You went straight to the priest.
To the priest.
As contrasting from today.
At the rectory.
Yep.
And
one-on-one.
One-on-one. And
did the priests know and understand and have the ability to articulate the faith then?
oh, yes, like only you can do now. That's how I had learned the faith. But when I started the instructions, his name was Father Mentick, and in Troy, Ohio, at St. Patrick's Church. And so as I started taking the instructions, and I was doing that of my own volition, and always said later, she said, I wish I could take credit for you becoming Catholic. And I said, well, you had a lot to do with it, you know. And anyway, during that course of instruction, then I got reassigned to England again, to the southeastern part of England. So I took up the instructions there in southeastern Norfolk. And that's where I was received into the church.
So you were officially received into the church in England?
Right.
Wow.
In England, yes.
I've been your son almost 52 years, and I never knew that until right now.
Really?
I thought you were in Ohio.
And my certificate of registry in the church was Liverpool, England.
Oh. Well, let me ask you. So you come into the church, this is 1957. So your first son, my brother Marshall, is already 3 years old, about 3 years old. He's born in 54.
Born in 54, you're correct.
So your oldest son actually was Catholic longer than you were.
He was, yes. Oh, yes.
When you came into the church you became acquainted with the church in the mid-50s, seriously acquainted in the mid-50s, start studying it, you come into the church, formally received into the church in the late 50s. That's the era of Bishop Sheen on TV and all of that.
Absolutely. Even my Protestant family watched Bishop Sheen on television.
What was the church like then? What was Catholic life like then?
Like it was for 1,000 years before. There were lines going to confession every Saturday. There were no altar girls, there were no Eucharistic minister. You did not touch the consecrated host, and it was truly as it was meant to be, and it had produced saints over many
centuries,
millennia, yes, and the beauty, the joy, everything about it spoke of God. You walked into a Catholic church and you knew that was God's house. And just to be present there in that atmosphere, and the thing that I remember from the church in Troy, where I went to, was the smell of incense. That it had been for years now, so you get that sense of the smell of incense in the sanctuary. And there was nothing that I didn't like about Catholic. All the Catholic movies, the Catholic actors and actresses, that they lived their faith, and they would broadcast it. They would tell it, like Bing Crosby and I can't even remember all of them now. In the Catholic movies, and the one that fascinated me was the Miracle of Our Lady of Fatima. And the Song of Bernadette, etc. And so everything Catholic I loved, and I loved the music. I loved Ave Maria, Panis Angelicus, Ora pro nobis, everything Catholic. And I never had like a wall between me and what Catholics believed before I ever knew anything about Catholicism. So it was always open to something. And what I never understood, why was my family not open to it? Why did it not come to them? But God works in mysterious ways. And as of today, I would say to anyone who was inquiring, I believe that there's no greater gift that Almighty God could give to any human being on earth than the gift of being a Roman Catholic. How blessed we are. Everything that I read Catholic books, the lives of the saints. I would just the very first book, when I was finally baptized, rebaptized, and conditionally in England, and the priest had given me some books to read. The first book that I ever read was the book of the farm boy who became Pope. It was a little paperback, St. Pius X.
St. Pius X, right.
That's my confirmation name that I took. That book so impressed me. And from that time on, I've been reading books by the hundreds and the hundreds. I wanted to know everything there was to know about Catholicism. And I just absolutely fell in love with it.
So, okay, you're born the day the stock market crashed.
Yes.
In October 1929.
Yes.
Fast forward 30 years to 1959. You are now a Catholic. You're getting your hands on everything you can get Catholic.
Exactly.
You're reading, listening, all the things. You are imbued in the Catholic culture.
Yes.
In Protestant America and Protestant England.
Exactly.
Now, today, what is that, 50 years ago, 53 years ago? How do you see things in the church today? After having had that, you chose to come into the church. You embraced it, loved it, grew up as a son of the church. Is the church different today than back in those days?
The difference between night and day.
Why? How so?
Everything about Catholicism that I learned and absorbed and treasured, I see none of that now. You go to empty churches, you go to empty confessionals, people holding hands for the Our Father, taking the Holy Communion in their hands. This is all so contrary to the Catholic faith that I came into. And you have to search out to find a church where there's any stability, Catholic stability in it now. You go from one to the other, and it seems like it's like a big community gathering, a bunch of friends gathered together. No different from meeting them in the airport or at a baseball game or something. This is kind of the difference now. And when in the early church, people didn't talk in church. They didn't clap. They were there to worship God. God was the center. And we never thought that the priest had his back to us. We thought we're facing the tabernacle. We're Christ.
With him.
With him, absolutely, in union with the priest. And it's so different now. Nothing would have the same magnetism now that I experienced when I came into the church. Everything spoke of Catholic in that era. Now it speaks of everything contrary to Catholic.
Why do you think that is?
Well,
it's a big worldview question, but you're allowed. You've been a Catholic almost 6 decades.
Well,
what do you think?
I think the whole upside down culture that the 60s brought about, and the church was caught up in that, and the Second Vatican Council, the Vietnam War, everybody pre-love, the whole disruption of the family life, and do your own thing. It's a me generation, and that's not the generation that I lived in. And So nothing that I see when I go into a modernistic church now. In fact, I went into one here in Michigan with the girl that I was catechizing, and she hadn't been in that church either, and it's a local church. And we went into the church for Sunday Mass, and we couldn't even find the tabernacle. And she said to me, Russ, should we leave? I said, yeah, absolutely. So we got up and left before every Mass, because it was just like you were going to a party. And everybody was, hey, how are you doing? And all this kind of stuff. That wasn't, to me, worshiping God. It was, the emphasis was on the individual.
The people.
The people. And that's where the church has gone off the rails completely. Thank God we have a few remnants here and there where we, as you and I know, where we go to Holy Mass. And just to call it Holy Mass, have you ever heard that? Have you ever heard that in a modern Catholic statement of people saying going to Holy Mass?
Not generally.
Exactly.
Not generally.
Exactly. So I just feel blessed above all people. And then now, as things develop, shall I talk about your mother?
Sure.
About what happened to her? And I completed my Air Force career, and then I went into civil service. I finally wound up at the U.S. Military Academy at West Point, New York. I was an administrative officer, administrative budget officer, and I was there for 15 years, and I finally retired from there in the year 2000. I had almost 50 years service in the government, and so this was the June 30th, 2000, when I retired from civil service, which I had previously retired from the Air Force. And then your mother and I lived in Scarborough, New York, in Westchester County, about 40 minutes north of Manhattan. And during this time, we started going down to Manhattan a lot because they had an 11 o'clock Latin Mass at St. Agnes's Church, where Archbishop Sheen used to be the pastor. And it was just
very close to Grand Central Station.
About 75 yards away from it. Mm-hmm. And so we would take the train down to Grand Central, and we'd go to another church and go to confession, and then we'd go and have breakfast, and then we'd get ready for the 11 o'clock Latin Mass at St. Agnes's. And those were treasured times. Your mother and I were so close. And I noticed as...
And at that point, married, coming up on 50 years. At that point, when you were going to St. Agnes, 47, 48 years.
Something like that, yeah, right.
Yeah, almost half a century.
Yeah. And I noticed then after Mass, we'd walk around Manhattan. Manhattan's a walk around town. Mm-hmm. And Anne loved it as I did. And we were just so close, and it was a beautiful period of my life. And she'd say, "Oh, honey," she said, "I'm very tired." So I said, "Oh, okay, well, we'll go home." So we catch the next train back, and it kept getting more pronounced each week, and some weeks we couldn't go. She said, I can't get up this morning." So I said, "Okay." So I'd go to another local church, and which a modern church. It was the only one I could go to. We were planning to come out here to visit you. We had reservations with Northwest Airlines, I think, at the time.
Yeah, Northwest. Now Delta.
Right, and so, but she was having a lot of trouble with her esophagus, her stomach, and she had GERD, mm-hmm. Gastro, whatever you call the GERD, but the reflux. Mm-hmm. And So, and it was bothering her a lot. And even though we had reservations to come out to visit you, and I said, honey, before we go to see Michael, you better have that checked again. She said, no. She said, I'll be okay, honey. I said, no. I said, I really think you need to go see Dr. B. And so she went to see him and arranged to have an endoscopy, and that's where they found the cancer. Mm-hmm. The cancer was placed right at the valve of into the stomach. And so Anne opted to have the surgery at a cancer hospital in Sloan Kettering. From the time she had the surgery, the night before she had the surgery, I looked at her and I thought, you'll never be the same. This is what I was thinking. I didn't say that to her, but then the next day when they cut her entirely open, and she was never the same after that. And then we finally, she toughed it out as much as she could, and we went back to our home, and we were very restricted on what we could eat, mm-hmm. and so just like a soft tomato soup or pea soup or something like that, and but she was having trouble with everything, and then we had a huge living room, as you know, and so I would have to, the food would go down into her esophagus. It wouldn't go down all the way, and it wouldn't come back up, and it was horribly painful for her. And so I would walk back and forth the full distance, about 30 feet from the door to the window at the end of the living room, and we walked back and forth and back and forth and back and forth until it would finally dislodge.
Yeah, kind of settle.
Exactly. I could see that it was progressively, her health was deteriorating. 3 weeks after 9/11.
Correct.
That she had cancer.
Right.
Then from that, as it progressed, and it was surgery, and then there was this period of hopefully it's going to be better, and it never got better.
Right.
But then on the 3rd of July, in the year 2002.
Yep.
We were staying at a hotel in New York, so we'd be near the cancer hospital, and she didn't feel like she was getting the treatment at the cancer hospital, and because the pain was intense that day, she said, I'm going back to my original doctor. And we got a town car and went back to there. And he said, you need to have an endoscopy again, Ann. And so she said, they're going to do it at Sloan Kettering, but we're going to arrange for it. So you go back to Sloan Kettering. And they had made all the previous arrangements. And so when we got back to the hospital, there was I think it was a German doctor that actually did the endoscopy, and Anne said to him prior to him doing the endoscopy, said, just one thing I want you to promise me, doctor, whatever you find, tell me the truth. And he said, I'll tell you the truth, Anne. And the result was that he came back and he said, yes, you have another cancer about 2 inches from where the original cancer was. And said, so the surgeon that did your surgery is on vacation this week. So I'm making an appointment for you to 3 o'clock in the afternoon on the following Monday.
Which was July 15th.
Yes. And in the waiting room, a lot of patients. And Anne could not even sit up. She had to lay over. And so I went up and I said, I want a room for her. She has to lie down. You get a room while we're waiting for the doctor. They did. And then when the doctor came in, as you know, we arranged that you would also be in on that. And so when he finally came in, he had all the reports back and everything. The biopsies, so he knew everything that was going on. He says, "Ann, I'm afraid I have some bad news for you." He said, your cancer has metastasized to your liver. And I said, "So what stage is it in?" He said, "It's in its final stage." I said, "So what time frame are we looking at?" And he says, 2 or 3 months. And so then that's when he connected you into and told you the very same thing he told me. And you said to me, "Just as soon as you get back home tonight, Dad, give me a call." That's exactly what happened. And I called you when we got home. And you said to me, "Dad, you've got to come out to Michigan right away." I said, "I can't just leave my home and everything here and nobody else to rely on." You said, "You don't have a choice. If Mom gets any weaker, she won't be able to get on a plane, and you can't drive her back." So 7 days later, we were back here. We were in Michigan. Mm-hmm. You met us that evening when we came in.
Yep.
And you had already arranged for our accommodations in Rochester Hills, mm-hmm. and a 3-room apartment, and what was comfortable. And then you'd set up the hospice arrangements, mm-hmm. and so the hospice nurses would come and check on her every week or every other week, and during this time, and I checked everything I could about liver cancer. She never had liver cancer. Something had gotten misplaced. Records had gotten she got somebody else's reading.
Something got mixed up.
Yeah, she never had jaundice or any of the other things that normally occur with cancer. So, but the hospice nurses would come and see her, and as you know, you and I were, along with the nurses, were trying to tell her to get her name on the list
to get in
for the hospice.
Hospice center. Right.
Exactly.
All right.
So you and I finally persuaded her, and so we got her name on. So I'll never forget in the early morning hours of the 3rd of May in 2004. I had never experienced that intense cancer that some people experience. Ann's was very painful, but it wasn't so excruciating that the early morning hours of the 3rd of May, it was excruciating. She said, screamed, and, "Honey, you get me to a hospital, get me to a hospital." I said, "Honey, I can't. You can't go to the hospital because then you can't go back to the hospice." And I said, so I didn't know what to do. And so helpless. So I thought, Blessed Mother, I said a prayer to our Blessed Mother. I said, "Blessed Mother, please ask your son to get a room to hospice." And you called at 1 o'clock that afternoon. You said, "Dad, they have a room." So I shouted into the bedroom to your mother, and I said, "Honey, Michael said they have a room for you at the hospice. Do you want it?" She said, "Oh, yes." So you said, "I'll be there in an hour." And we went there. This was after 20 months arriving in Michigan that she finally went into the hospice. And she was there for 6 weeks, and the beautiful care they gave her. And she had all the benefits of everything the church has to offer with the person dying. And I was with her constantly. So the last night, as you remember, in your civilian job with a GM, that you had said to me that Sunday night that, "Dad, I'm supposed to be in Washington tomorrow, but I don't feel I should go because of Mom's deteriorating condition." But you were conducting the conference, and I thought that it was important that you go, and because I would be with your mother, and I told you that I would call immediately if anything changed. And I remember when you got to the airport, and on your way to the airport, you called me about 5 or 6 times.
Yeah, I remember that.
Checking, and you said, Dad, I don't think I should be going. I said, no, Pat, go ahead and go. I will let you know immediately. And it was 2 hours later, when you arrived at Washington Airport, I called you. And you had already previously checked the airline schedules for coming back. And you said to me, you says, Mom's taken a turn for the worse, hadn't she? I said, yes. So you said, I'll be home, I'll be there about 4 o'clock. And I remember you later told me that when you were getting ready to take that flight back, that you told me, I don't know how I'm going to make that flight. Thinking of these things, I not know whether Mom's dead or alive. And you turned around and there's a priest from Detroit whom you knew and who came and sat with you and accompanied you back. So when you arrived here in Detroit at the airport, and you got off the plane, and the staff member that met you said, well, we got to get your baggage. And you said, no, I want to get to the hospice right away. And so...
yeah, we drove about 100 miles an hour from the airport to the hospice.
Oh, I can believe that.
I just kept saying, go faster, go faster.
I can believe that. And then I saw you when you came in the hallway in the hospice. You said, is Mom still? I said, yes, okay. So you got an hour of private time with her. And the priest had just been there. She got the apostolic blessing and everything that the church had to give. While you were there talking with your mother, the priest comes in that had accompanied you here, and he had brought your baggage with you.
Yeah.
And he came over, and he heard you say that you were just going to leave, you had to go. So he picked your baggage up and brought it for you. And then he came over, and he knelt beside Anne. He was on the left side of the bed, and you were on the right. But I was in a place where I could see, and he knelt, and he blessed her. And she says, Father, I'm very afraid. He says, Anne, you don't have anything to be afraid about. I saw a look in her eye. You weren't positioned to be able to see it, but I saw the look in her eyes that I'd never seen in all the years that we were married. And shortly after that, the doctor and nurse came in and says, Anne, would you like something so you could rest? She says, oh, yes. So he gave her those couple little drops beneath her tongue. She put her head over like that. And I told you that you could stay with her that night because I'd been with her all the time. So they made a makeshift room for me. And so I spent the night in this makeshift room. And when I woke up early, I always wake up early in the morning. I always say my rosary. First thing in the morning, I say the rosary for poor dying sinners. And the night nurses that were on the midnight shift, I guess it was about 6 o'clock or 5 o'clock in the morning sometime during that time, one of the nurses came and knocked on the door, and not hearing well, she said something to, I said yes, and she said something to me while I was in the process of saying, I said, oh, okay. I thought, and it looked like she had some linens or something in her hand, and I thought that's probably the room that she wanted to come in and deliver the linens. But she went away, and I continued saying my rosary. And just as I finished completing my rosary for poor dying sinners. Another nurse came, whom I did not know, and she said, "Are you Mr. Voris?" I said, "Yes." She said, "You need to go to your wife's room." And that's when I went. And you told me Mom died at 5:35 this morning. Mm-hmm. That you had stayed awake all night watching her taking her breath, and you saw her take her last breath. What a blessed death God had given to her. This is the glory of being a Catholic. I want to shout it from the rooftops. Why don't you people know this? This was my journey, and I thank God for every step along the way. I wasn't always the Catholic that I should have been, by no means. But the fact that he brought me into the church and his Blessed Mother, they were just the best of friends. I love her so much, and that is with God. And now, she gave her life for you and your brother. And neither of you were living your lives as you should have been, and we had prayed for you for a long time. So God brings beauty out of ugliness, good out of evil. The life you were living and the way that your mother had told God, had made a commitment with God, you can do with me whatever you want. But whatever you want for the salvation of my two sons. And I didn't know that at the time. It was later that I found it out. But she gave her life for the salvation of her sons. That's love. It's so great to be Catholic. And now, what's happened from the time of your mother's death, how your life took a complete turn. The prodigal son came home, and God used the talent and the gifts that he gave you and are still going out worldwide today. How can we thank him enough?
No, you can't. When you see the condition of the church today, now, and you contrast that with your experience as a Catholic, how do you feel?
Torn. I reflect on the words of Pope Paul VI, that some smoke has entered the church.
The smoke of Satan has
entered the church.
Through some fissure, the smoke of Satan has entered the sanctuary.
And when the church allowed that little crack to open, it became an avalanche. So everything that we see in the church is so different from what the fullness of the truth of our Holy Catholic faith is and deserves, and it must be told. I thank God with every fiber of my being. Every day, the first thing I say, I thank you, Lord, for my life. Keep me pure, keep me pure. And I offer up my every thought, word, and action this day for your greater honor and glory and for the salvation of souls.
You, as a matter of fact, when you wake up, I know you get a little tired because you're somewhat older, a little bit older than me.
You what? Say that again.
Because you're a little bit older than me, just a little. When you wake up, you kind of fall back asleep a little bit sometimes. But when you first wake up, you spend a couple hours saying your prayers.
No, I wouldn't say a couple hours. I start the day with the rosary. First, I tell God that I love him and I thank him for the gifts and the graces that he's given to me and to help me to live this day without offending him. And then I say my rosary, whichever rosary is scheduled for that day. And then I say Chaplet of Mercy. for poor dying sinners. No, the rosary is always for poor dying sinners. The chapel of mercy is for the souls in purgatory, for relief for the suffering souls in purgatory. And then there's many other prayers, and I by name, I don't name them, but I say prayers of my guardian angel, say prayers. There's a various array of prayers, Catholic prayers. You could pray every minute of every day, and you never run out of prayers to say. And and I feel blessed now that the apartment style of my room, that the peace and the serenity, that the ability to be able to meditate and to pray, and look out my window and see the clouds and the trees and the sky, and thank God what a beautiful universe you made, and how corrupt men have turned it into, and that's particularly true of our church. And I'm like you are. I want people to know the truth. And as you know, my hangout is at Dunkin' Donuts, where I go each day and have coffee and a cookie or donut or something. And I wear the symbols of my faith, not because they're nice, and they're beautiful. I think what Jesus went through to save me, how can I do otherwise? And if people look at it and they think, oh, he's showing, this is that reason, I don't know why I wear them. And the miraculous medal that I have on, that's another whole tale. I won't go into that now.
Do you think there is, your relationship with the faith, with our Lord, do you think that there are just so many Catholics today that are just deprived of that kind of understanding? They don't hear this kind of thing.
Absolutely.
Do you think that there are a lot of Catholics today that just don't have that kind of relationship?
They have no knowledge whatsoever. They're in the dark.
Catholics.
Why? Because they're not being fed. The church has cast them aside. They'd rather have the praise of men and not the salvation of the souls that they're...
The leaders you're talking about.
The leaders, exactly.
Bishops, the priests.
Yes, absolutely. They've been given a tremendous responsibility to be a priest, and to see that these priests are doing everything but being priests. They're tearing the church apart, and someone has to do something. We pray that each of our new popes will be the one that will consecrate Russia to the Immaculate Heart of Mary, and hopefully then that we'll see Russia converted, and in that conversion that there'll be a whole new conversion in the world. And right now we're going through a period of tribulation, and we really need to wake up from this, and on an individual level as well as collectively, and get back to what is what will help us to save our immortal souls. Nothing in this life matters. And the car, the position, the money, the fame, the fortune, nothing, absolutely. And this is what I tell people who listen, particularly my friends at Dunkin' Donuts that come in, they're regular customers, and I have a lot of discussions with them, and I want them to know the things I know. Mm-hmm. And how can you ever begin to expound on 50-some years of the reading, the studying, the knowledge that God has given to me from this and my association with other I just don't, I don't know how to vocalize it, to verbalize it. I am so thankful for what I've got. And I would wish this on every human being in the world. But people don't want to know. Some people are so reluctant to listen to the truth. I get that at Dunkin' Donuts too. Those who put no wall up and they want to know, oh, that's a different story. It's my responsibility. Mm-hmm. I've been given a great, beautiful gift that I wish that every person on earth could have. So as I meet them and I tell them, you're my friends now, we've talked about, now I need to tell you things. It's my responsibility to share with what I've been given, to share it with you. If you like it, fine. If you don't, that's okay too. But my responsibility before Almighty God is to share this with you to the best of my ability and the knowledge and the information that I possess, that God has given to me. And that's my life. I don't know what more I can do, but to support you as I have from day one in your apostolate, and gladly both of us sacrificed our savings, our money, the things that we had, our fortunes, our financial fortune. But God needed you, and I thank God. I thank God for every day for the apostolate and for its outreach throughout the whole world, how it's developed. When you and I knew that we thought we were sinking, when I told you to let your people go, mm-hmm. because we couldn't manage it financially, but God had other plans.
Yes, He did.
And it went from that place where we thought we were just, you went and told your people that they had 2-week notice.
Yeah.
But from that point on, then, God took charge. He's in charge all the time, but then He had other plans that we did not know about.
Sure.
But He's made most clear now. That's why we're sitting here in this building now.
Very true.
What a blessing.
Amen.
Yeah, really and truly.
Thank you, Dad.
You sound like a Protestant saying amen. I just thought I'd throw that in there, Pat. I've been down that road, so I know.
Love you, Dad. Thank you.
Love you too, Pat. Thank you. Okay.